Okay, hello everyone, and welcome back. Hope you enjoyed your week. Guys, today we're going to talk about margin of error. All right, today's objective, define a sample's margin of error. All right, margin of error is our title today. You're going to need that for the notes assessment. The essential question, how do we measure the difference between sample results and actual results? Guys, these are two vocabulary words you're going to need. As a parameter, it's numbers that summarize data for an entire population. We call them parameters. All right? Things like the mean or the standard deviation of the entire population. That's a parameter. A statistic are the numbers that summarize the sample. All right? Statistics come from a sample, like a mean and a standard deviation comes from a sample if it's a statistic. All right, we use statistics to estimate their corresponding population parameters. It's hard to get all the data from a huge population. So we're estimating parameters using the statistics that we get from the sample. And of course, the accuracy of our estimate, it depends on two things: the number of participants in the sample and how well that sample represents or reflects the population that we're trying to measure. All right, using any sample, as we can find what's called the sample proportion. It's the number of times an event occurs divided by the sample size. So if I roll a dice, let's say, 12 times, that's the sample size. The 12 goes on the bottom. If I'm counting, let's say, how many times the number 4 comes up, let's say, 3 times. The 3 goes on the top. Okay? Guys, the size of the sample, of course, affects its reliability. A small sample size, guys, you're likely to get a wide range of sample proportions with different samples if they're too small. As an example here, the sample of 5, you get all yellow. It doesn't reflect the whole population because there are blue in the population as well. Guys, there's something called the law of large numbers. You're going to need to know this. It's a vocabulary word. It states, guys, the variation in a data set decreases as the sample size increases. As an example, if I flipped a coin, let's say 5 times, I might end up with 4 heads and 1 tail. But if I flipped it, 500 million times, I'm going to end up with really close to the same number of heads as number of tails. Guys, because samples, they're only an estimate. All right, sample proportion should always be reported with some estimate of error. All right, we're estimating the entire population parameter. So when we use a statistic from a sample, we want to include some margin of error. All right? The larger the sample size, the smaller the margin of error. Again, the larger the sample size, the smaller the margin of error. Guys, a margin of error, this is a formula we're going to use. And this only works for a very large population. All right? The sample proportion, it's 1 over the square root of the sample size. And you report it as a plus minus. Okay? It depends on the sample size. We're talking about a very large population here, okay? All right, what do you do next, guys? Fill out today's notes assignments and complete the summary assessment. All right, all the answers are right here in this video. Prepare for the Zoom meeting We have 5 vocabulary words, and again, I just gave them to you. I just gave you the answers right in this video. All right, a reminder. This week is test number 2. That's Thursday and Friday of this week. It covers these 5 things right here. The types of studies and the different sampling methods we looked at. It's going to cover normal distributions. We did 2 days of that. All right, Z-score we talked about. We talked about the misrepresentations of data. It was a short lesson this past week that we were off. But I'm going to have 1 or 2 questions about that on the test. And then margin of error that we covered today is going to be on the test. Y'all, we will have review for the test the day of the test. All right? So please get ready for it. If you have questions, email me. All right? We'll see you in the next Zoom meeting.